The Planet of Hats trope comes from the idea that a setting or culture has one unique trait and pretty much nothing else going on at first glance. It was popularized in part by Star Trek, which sent the crew to places like Sigma Eta 2, where all of society is styled around 1920s American gangsters, or Romulus and Remus, which are based on Rome, obviously. Fun fact, Remus is on NASA's list of their top 10 Star Trek destinations. Neat. Neil Gaiman takes this one step further with his funny hats, to make characters more memorable. This method helps make Mr. Vandemar and Mr. Crew feel particularly distinct from one another in Neverwhere. One is very talkative and a bit pompous, while the other doesn't have much to say at all. So what's going on with these hats, and why do we use them? Should we, even? Monocultures can be problematic, since they simplify an entire group of people into a stereotype, but they can also be useful. Simplifying a setting and its people helps our audience follow along and not get overwhelmed with information. That's a real issue in many stories, especially when they jump from place to place like Star Trek does. But reality isn't like that. Worlds are usually quite large and people are complicated. Neil Gaiman likes to remind us that there are a lot of characters, not just in your story, but in all the stories. To combat the natural state of confusion that can cause, he talks about giving characters what he calls funny hats. Not in a literal sense, necessarily. By funny hats, he means a distinguishable, unique thing about them. You just write characters who are different from each other. They look different from each other, they feel different from each other. You're holding the reader's hand a little bit, and you're making sure they're never confused. So, if a hat makes a world easier to understand and a character more memorable, how do we build on that character or their place in the world as the story goes on? One of my favorite examples of this comes from the Mass Effect games. They're kind of like Star Trek in the way that they quickly introduce a lot of alien species to you. Many of them are introduced as monocultures to avoid confusing the player too much. And the characters you interact with become representatives of them. The Taurians are generally seen as the intergalactic police force. The Quarians are a nomadic species great with tech, and the Krogan are, well, they're warriors. A bit less disciplined, they're basically just Klingons. If the World of Hats trope means to simplify a culture into something easier to communicate, and funny hats are meant to make a character more memorable, then the next logical step should be to ask about when to remove the hat. What made Mass Effect special was that each member of your crew had a unique mission that gives us a closer glimpse into that character or their culture. One reveals Garrus's history and shows us how he struggles to handle problems with gray morality. Another has us take part in Quarian politics when Tali is charged for treason and we try to clear her name. Grunt's mission revealed a new aspect of Krogan culture to us with their rite of passage. Turns out it's killing this giant sandworm thing, along with more alien politics. Mass Effect really likes its alien politics. Through these missions, we discover more about each character's history, family, or culture. The story expands on the particular traits we knew them for, and builds on them through the individual characters' wants and needs. Levi's already covered this concept a bit, which you can watch over here, but in short, a good character both wants and needs something. Tony Stark wants to make amends, but he needs to be more humble for the greater good. Grunt wants to fight, but he needs to be accepted by the other Krogan. And that's really what this comes down to. A good hat is a path forward toward the wants and needs of a character, hinting at them sometimes before we fully recognize what they even are. Giving them a defining and easily recognizable trait like how Grunt is part of a warrior species or how Tony is egotistical is a great way to lead into something bigger. If a character needs revenge, give them a scar from the last time they tried. If they need to overcome a fear of heights, maybe show a change in their mannerisms based on how high up they are. If a character is wearing a funny hat, it's probably got something to do with their past or future aspirations. The way that Mass Effect handled its characters is one of the reasons I still fondly remember the series, because I very quickly felt like I knew each character. I was excited to dig in deeper, beyond their monocultures and archetypes, and it was always fun when they returned in the sequel. Try it for yourself. Introduce a character from a monoculture or who has a funny hat. Then, as you spend more time with them, consider their personal history or goals. Don't let them just be that monoculture or the hat they wear. Ask yourself why they act this way, or what changed them in the past, and when the time is right, share your story with the reader. Thanks for watching. Neil Gaiman,